So what we did was we asked each candidate to give us up to 100 words to describe what they would like us to read. And we don't edit it, we just read it the way that they did it, and it's actually in the back if anyone wanted a copy of it. So we'll do it alphabetically. Jared Milrad. Jared believes that we need change in City Hall. He is a proactive, engaged leader who will fight to repair our neglected infrastructure, protect the environment, and provide the resources we deserve. Raised by a single mother, and educated in public schools, Jared has a lifetime of diverse leadership experience serving others. He worked for President Barack Obama, started a nonprofit organization to help families afford legal services, and develop programs to empower at-risk youth in our community. A small business owner and animal advocate, Jared lives and works in Cal Heights with his husband Nate and adopted dog Oliver. Okay. Roberto Uranga. Roberto Uranga has consistently represented District 7 residents conscientiously represented District 7 residents since 2014. He has served on the California Coastal Commission since 2015, chairs the 710 Oversight Committee, and serves on several other boards and commissions. Roberto's priorities for his second term are eradicating homelessness, alleviating congestion, and developing dynamic business corridors. Councilmember Uranga has a 35-year history of community involvement, community engagement, and activism in Long Beach. He and his wife Tanya have raised 3 children here and have recently become proud grandparents. He cares deeply about the city and looks forward to continuing his service in his second term. Question number 1. Your 2 most important issues, and this is for Mr. Milrad first. What do you think are the 2 most important issues facing the 7th District right now? What makes you think that? And what do you plan on doing to address them?
Well, good evening, and thank you for the question. Thank you for hosting tonight. Number 1, we need engagement. And so that means a council member who's involved, who's engaged, who's trying to vote, but also is present in our community. And so one thing I want to do, and what we have done in the course of our campaign, is knocking not only thousands of doors and listening to thousands of neighbors, but on the city council, actually making sure that we have a council member who you don't always have to go to, who can come to you and show up at your door and listen to you. That's why we've had house parties across the community, and that's something I'm going to continue if elected on June 5th. But as part of that, we need to work on the top tier issues in our community. So infrastructure, number 1, we see neglect in our infrastructure all across our district. From the west side to Wrigley to Cal Heights, sidewalks, we see roads, we see trees that haven't been maintained or replaced. We have parks, like Silverado Park on the west side, and we have bathroom doors. So we need to make sure that we're maintaining our infrastructure and that our taxes on the west side, Wrigley and Cal Heights throughout our district go just as far here as they do anywhere else in the district. That's number 1. Number 2 is our environment. And our environment has been neglected. And we do live in one of the most polluted regions in the country. It's disappointing that my opponent's taking more than $10,000 from oil companies, 10 different big oil companies and executives. That's a fact. What I will do is make sure that, number 1, we haven't taken a dime from those companies, and we're actually investing in our community. Instead of widening the 710, which my opponent voted for, we're going to fight for zero-emission trucks. We're going to fight for dedicated truck lane. We're going to fight to raise the barrier along the 710. And we have a neighbor who lives on Gale Ave who already has truck tires flying in her yard, pieces of tires since she was a little girl. And we already have twice the national rate of that. So I will fight for open space. I'll fight to lower pollution. I'll fight for healthier food options. We need an environmental champion, not an insider for big oil. That's what we have right now.
That was awful. But I think the question was, what are the 2 most important issues? And there was a lot of things thrown out there by my opponent that were all over the place. Anyway, the 2 most important issues that I attacked and that I'm looking at and that I've heard from my constituents is homelessness. When I knock on the door, that's one of the first things that I hear. What are you going to do about homelessness? And the other is, what are you going to do about the increasing rate of crime in our neighborhoods? And it happens to be that, I hear you. I have had issues with homelessness in my own yard. I live next to the river, and there's always homeless encampments around the river. And every time I go to the freeway to go to North Long Beach or to go to downtown Long Beach, you could see those tenements all over the river. river and under the freeway. So every time that I get a call in the city council office, we call our stakeholders, we call the county, we call the Caltrans, we call Southern California Edison. Hey, we have encampments over here, we need to get them out. And so we do. And so like a balloon, what happens? Crash them out from one place, they go where? Into the neighborhoods. And when they go into the neighborhoods, what happens? We get a little uptick in crime. So one of the things that we have to do is try to resolve and try to reduce homelessness. I've been working with our mayor, I've been working with stakeholders about creating more job opportunities, more training programs, providing more services for homeless, providing more opportunities for them to take care of themselves. I meet with the police commander every month, and we look at trying to get task forces. In fact, this month, in May, we had 3 burglaries. In April, we had 17. The task forces are working. I meet with the police officers all the time. We talk about reducing crime, and crime has been reduced. Major crime, violent crime is down. Now, we do have upticks, and I work with the police department to make sure that we address those issues as they come forward. Thank you.
So this would be a 1-minute rebuttal.
Folks, we need a council member we can trust. And frankly, what the council member just said is not true. Homelessness is up. And if you look at the 2017 statistics, the homelessness count from our city, which we cite on our website, since 2013, homelessness has increased in District 7 through 9. That's a fact. It has gone up, and we hear it all the time from our neighbors. It has gone up throughout the district. What we need is permanent supportive housing. And that's something I've been consistently fighting for, and that is leadership I will bring. Instead of a council member who's missed 260 opportunities to serve our community, we need a leader who will make sure that we have someone who frankly will reduce homelessness. And we know that's the proven strategy to do it, is permanent supportive housing. Number 2, crime. Crime is up as well. Violent crime up 25%. Petty theft up 28%. Aggravated assault up 58%. That's according to the Long Beach Police Department's own statistics. These are facts, and so we need someone who actually makes sure we get more community policing. We need someone who will make sure that we actually have cops who walk the beat, that we support neighborhood watches, that we have someone who will make sure our police have the resources and the tools that they need, and that's something I will fight for every single day in the city council. Again, we need someone designed, and we need someone who will fight. Thank you.
Okay. Question number 2. And Roberto Uranga goes first on this. City resources. Do you think the 7th District, or the West Side in general, is receiving its fair share of resource spending by the city? What positive changes to 7th District infrastructure and parks would you make or have you made?
I've been a city council member for 4 years. And one of the most, oh, by the way, before we get that, a lot of untruths were said right now, but I'm not going to rebut that because they're very just untruths. And I think people in the audience know that. Anyway, bottom line is that the question is, we're infrastructure and parks. And what we are doing with Measure A, because of you voted for it, I voted for it, and it's the best thing that ever happened to the city. We're being able to balance our budgets, and we've been able to fix our streets and sidewalks. There have been more streets and sidewalks fixed within the last 3 years than have been in the last 20. With all due respect to my wife, who was on the city council, I've done a lot more, baby. But at the end of the day, you look at Long Beach, and you look at the city that I inherited 4 years ago, the city that we have now. There is so much more improvements out there. Trees are being trimmed, sidewalks are being fixed, streets are being repaired, potholes are being filled. When we look at the parks, I repaired the restrooms and the kitchen at Silverado Park. I fixed the fields at the baseball fields at Cherry Park, at Silverado Park, and Eldorado Park. In fact, we invested $1.5 million to add a pitch, a soccer field, for Admiral Kidd Park. So we've done many improvements along the 4 years that I've been there, and there's more to come. I mean, there's more that we need to do for our kids, to provide them with more recreational programs at the parks, and with the help of Measure A, we've been able to balance our budgets. And because we've been able to balance our budgets, we're able to allocate more funds for libraries, for parks, and for all other programs that are so sorely needed in our communities. And I'm ensuring that 7th District residents, the 7th District gets its fair share of all those allocations to make sure that we are on track to improve the 7th District and be where it should be. Thank you.
I really wonder where these improvements are happening, and so do many folks in our district. Because we have been all Thank you. We have been all across this district. We've listened to thousands of neighbors. And if you go to the west side, for example, there are streets that are so cracked, it's evident. I mean, there are sidewalks that are cracked, that are dangerous, look like curbs. There are curbs that are cracked or missing. We could take you right now and go there. Excuse me. Thank you. We have significant challenges in our district. If you want to talk about Measure A, we pay 10.25% sales tax right now, and yet we have no representation on the Citizens Advisory Commission. There are 5 members. District 7 has 0 representation. Again, that's a fact. On the City Council, something I will fight for is make sure we get representation on that commission, that we actually have a council member who's engaged, who's involved, who's going to fight for our fair share of resources. And we are currently not getting it because our roads are neglected, our sidewalks are neglected. We don't even have speed bumps, stop signs on many streets. We don't have skips in the appropriate places, and we do have the second highest rate right now of injuries and fatalities for children in the state of California who are hit by vehicles. That's a fact. So we need someone who's actually going to champion infrastructure. Our parks. Look, we've heard from mothers who are trying to get, Little League supplies. We've heard from folks in the west side who don't have the resources they need, don't have open space. We only have an acre per 1,000 residents of open space in the west side. So I will fight to make sure that our community has the open space it deserves, that it has parks that are well maintained, and that look as respectable and as good as they do anywhere else in the district. Belmont Shore and Bixby Knolls do not have this same level of neglect. It just does not. And if you listen to community members, this is what folks have been saying over and over again. And so we do need change. We now have a majority of folks who voted for change in April, and I know a majority of folks will do it again in June, because we are ready for new leadership that will actually make sure our tax dollars go where they're supposed to go, and that's in our community.
Okay, just a couple of little things. One is, please don't heckle the candidates. We appreciate if you did. The other is how they use their microphones is up to them, but we have tested that the microphones are the same. So however they choose to speak into or not speak into their mics is up to them. Because I want to make sure that everyone realizes it's not, one or the other. Okay, so question number 3. And Jared Milrad will go first for this one. It is on rent control. Do you support the rent control ballot measure currently being circulated for signature?
First of all, I am a renter. I live and work in our district. I'm a proud renter. I'm the son of a single mother. I'm also a millennial, someone who's experienced the challenges that many of us have faced in terms of student loan crisis, in terms of recession, in terms of many of us in our community, many veterans in our community. So I want to make sure that every single person in our community can afford to live here. That is why I do not support rent control, and I'll tell you why. We didn't actually have a council member who will speak the truth and will fight for everyone in our community. So what I would do is expand our low and middle income housing stock. That is what we need. We need affordable housing for our community. We need a council member who will actually fight to make sure we use tools like inclusionary zoning, like set-asides, to make sure that developers and nonprofit developers do actually have those affordable units available to folks. I also want to fight for things like rent mediation and make sure that folks can have a fair share of their affordable housing. And landlords play by the rules. Those are the types of things we need in our community. The problem with rent control is when you have rent control, like we had in Santa Monica, in West Hollywood, in other parts of our state, San Francisco, we actually lose housing stock. We're already seeing this in the city of Long Beach, where property owners are leaving our community or will raise rent to avoid rent control or just get out, frankly. And that's going to reduce housing stock and reduce affordable housing stock, and it's also going to make, if and when we have rent control, it will not be needs-based. And so the problem is it's tied to the rental unit, but it's not tied to the renter. And I want to make sure we actually provide support for renters. We provide things like paid family leave. We have livable wages in our city. All the things that we know to make sure that we frankly, have folks who can live and work here. Now, 76% of our folks don't work in Long Beach. And I want to make sure that's changed. And I want to make sure, like the mothers I've met, that they can actually afford to get by and stay here. Now, my opponent, frankly, is all over the map on this issue. He said he supports just cause eviction. Then he said in one of our debates it's not important what he thinks. And so, frankly, I think we need someone who'll tell the truth and will fight for our community.
You know, I read a great quote the other day from Patrick Moynihan. And it says something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, is that everybody's entitled to an opinion, but nobody's entitled to their own facts. And that's what I heard right now. And that's what I've been hearing since the beginning. Created facts, untrue, and especially statements related to me. Now, the topic and the issue is rent control, and whether I support it or not. On the city council, in my office that I've been in so far, I've had many meetings with housing advocates to talk about just cause, to talk about absentee landlords, to talk about the decrepit, uninhabitable conditions in their homes and in their apartments. I've been to those homes. I've been to the apartments. I've seen what it's like. And I know that we need to address those issues. And I know that these individuals don't have to live in the deplorable conditions that they do, because we do have issues with apartment owners. We do have issues with absentee landlords. And we do have issues with the fact that there aren't enough inspections that the city does for these facilities to ensure that they're kept up to date, that they are clean, and that they're habitable. So when we try to work on a LBREPORT, which is a housing inspection program with planning and building, we couldn't get the two sides together to agree to that.
And telling folks where you stand. And that's why I'm proud to be the only candidate up here who actually has a detailed platform to tell you where I stand. My opponent does not. And so,
we tried on the city council, and we worked hard to get to a yes. We couldn't do it. So what happens? It goes to the people. And so that's where it is right now. They're getting signatures, and if it makes the ballot, that's where it belongs. Let the people decide. You decide what you want or not, for rent control or not. It's up to the people. It's up to you. I have my opinion. I am not a rent control supporter, but it's not my decision. It's going to be the people's decision when it comes to the ballot. Thank you very much.
leadership is about taking a stand and telling folks where you stand. And that's why I'm proud to be the only candidate up here who actually has a detailed platform to tell you where I stand. My opponent does not. And so that means actually having principled leadership, taking a position on issues, and fighting for it. Now, I'm happy to sit down with anyone, just as we have had throughout this campaign, and hear their view on issues. And I am open-minded on that point. So that's exactly what I'll do with the City Council, is listen, be engaged, and fight for our community, and actually take a stand on issues. That's what principled leadership is, and that's what our community deserves. Now, if you want to talk about facts, I'm happy to. And we actually cite every single fact we mention in our materials on our website, unlike my opponent. I haven't seen a single fact that he cited on his website. We cite the 260 missed votes that he's missed. We cite his oil money he's taken. We cite his we cite his vote to support the 710 widening. So if we want to talk about facts, I'm happy to. And I think we need a leader, again, who will fight for our community, not outside special interests, and will stand up and make sure that our folks can live and work in our community.
Thank you. Okay, so number 4. Mr. Uranga will go first on this one, is Long Beach Airport noise. The Long Beach Airport is an important local business driver and one of the 5 nationwide airports to have the protection of a noise ordinance. What have you done, or would you do, as 7th District Council Representative if faced with potential challenges to the ordinance, and do you think it is possible to modify modify the ordinance without affecting or impacting local residents.
4 years ago, we had this very issue right here. We had this very forum where we talked about the airport and the noise ordinance. At that time, 4 years ago, JetBlue was looking at changing its business plan. It was looking at changing its business plan from east to west and west to east, to north to south, to go to Canada and to go to Mexico and beyond. The very concerns that were raised during that time was the fact that if we allow JetBlue to change its business plan, that means that we would have to construct what they call an FIS, a facilities inspection service, which means customs. So what would that mean? That means an expansion of the airport. It would mean probably bigger planes. It would probably mean more noise. You made it very clear, those who live on the flight path in Cal Heights area, Bixby Knolls areas, that you didn't want that noise ordinance to be affected at all. And I took a pledge then to protect the noise ordinance. And I have. At that point, there's been several issues raised with the airport regarding the noise ordinance. There was a noise ordinance of penalties that we're looking at. And there was a meeting. We had a special meeting last month, actually at the end of March. And I want to recognize Kevin Shin, who's here. He was at that meeting because he was there. He was concerned. He was interested in seeing what the noise ordinance was going to be all about and how we could protect it. He was there. And what we have now is that the noise ordinance is going to stay the same. I am going to protect it. Nothing's going to change with that noise ordinance. And if anything else, we're going to increase the penalties to those violators who violate the noise ordinance between 10 o'clock at night and 7 in the morning. We're going to make sure that that is protected, and it's going to be protected without any changes, Bob, to the noise ordinance at all. Thank you very much.
Well, look, I live and work in Cal Heights, so I live and work next to the airport, and I can tell you for a fact, if they're listening to residents all across our community, the airport noise is continuing. In some cases, residents reported it's getting worse because JetBlue has repeatedly violated the noise ordinance. So we do need a strong, independent leader on this issue and just about every single other one. So first of all, on the fines, we need a leader who actually fights to make sure JetBlue pays its fair share of fines. And I support the proposal that was before the Airport Advisory Commission, actually raise those fines all across the board, and if necessary, take away slots from JetBlue. Because we contribute to JetBlue, and we are their customers, and they need to respect our community and not fly at all kinds of hours over our houses. That is number one. Number two, we need a council member who actually strongly not only oppose airport expansion, but show up to vote on those issues. You know, my opponent missed the vote on the master plan for Long Beach Airport. We need a council member, who's going to be there, who's going to actually fight for our community. And that is something I will continue to do. So I think we should raise the fines. I think we should make sure the noise ordinance is enforced. I think we should oppose international expansion. And I think we need an engaged leader, independent leader, who actually fights on the city council, frankly, who lives and works in our community, who experiences the airport noise and what it does to our community. And I will bring that leadership to the city council elected on June 5th.
Okay, great. Question number 5. It was touched on a little bit, but this is a standalone question. Homelessness. And this is for Mr. Milrad to go first. The 7th District and the city as a whole continues to suffer from homelessness. Unfortunately, this has increased crime, open drug use, health issues, and other serious problems. What is your plan to help both the 7th District residents and the homeless themselves?
First of all, homelessness is fundamentally a human rights issue. That's why I'm the only candidate up here actually has diverse leadership experience in social causes and working to make people's lives better for my entire life. Starting a nonprofit and starting a small business in our community. So I want to bring that experience and also experience managing budgets, knowing the difference between what's nice to have and what's a must-have. So in homelessness, it's a human rights issue. We need it's also a taxpayer issue. So there are a couple things I want to do. Number one, we need to do what works in other cities. So having trained advocates that actually go out, build relationships with folks who are homeless, especially folks who are chronically homeless, get them into permanent supportive housing, making sure that they actually can get the help they need, like mental health services, like job training, life skills, substance abuse treatment. This is a model that has worked in other communities. It's worked in Salt Lake City and Utah. It's worked in our county. And I think we need to make sure it works here too. Because what it will do is also save taxpayers money. We spend on average between $30,000 to $50,000 per year per person experiencing homelessness right now, and that's because we're spewing our cash through public safety costs, through emergency room visits, through jail visits, and folks are on the street not getting the help they need. And so I want to make sure they actually get the help they need in permanent supportive housing, and they actually can get back on their feet and into our community. Because when you do that, you also improve public safety, you also improve public health, and that's something I will fight for every single day in our community. And like I said earlier, look, homelessness has gone up in our district. We see it every single day. We see folks sleeping in our alleyways. We see folks sleeping near our small businesses. And we need to make sure these folks get the help they need, get back on their feet, and can be productive members of the society. And we should do what works and use taxpayers' money wisely, because we invest in our city, and our city should invest in us. Thank you.
And here we go again. Greetings, old facts. When we look at homelessness, it's a fact. We have a growing problem. And what I have done in the 7th District is make sure that I work with the villages of Cabrillo. We've created an additional 80 beds to house homeless veterans. We're working on it. I've worked to help get homeless off the street. As I mentioned earlier, I work with our state and local agencies to deal with homeless encampments and to try to address those issues. We have what we call a HEART team, a homeless emergency response team, HEART. When they go out there, and it's not about just kicking homeless out from the encampments, it's about providing them with services. I took a very controversial vote last year, 2 years ago, to establish what we call a behavioral health center on Long Beach Boulevard. It was very controversial. Why was it controversial? Because people didn't want to see that center go there, especially in that location. Because they felt that if we put that health center there, people are going to be going there and they're going to go into the neighborhoods and create more crime and create more nuisances. What that health center does is actually provides an opportunity for people with a mental health issue to go there, receive treatment, and receive the opportunities to get their heads together and then go back to their homes or go back into wherever their location is and take them there. And I put, during that time, I put 160 restrictions on that facility to ensure that people who are homeless and who have those services get them. Now we're also working with a task force and I'm working with the mayor that includes business owners, business leaders, community leaders, educational leaders, and other stakeholders to ensure that we address the issues of homelessness and to resolve that problem as best we can using innovative, creative ways of dealing with homelessness, including transitional housing, vouchers, and other instances where we make sure that they have the housing they need, the help they need.
Question number 6, 710 and trucks. Mr. Uranga goes first on this. There are several current and proposed projects that address improving economic growth and limiting environmental damage from the ports, refineries, and other industrial facilities. Many include changes to the 710 freeway. How will your decisions balance job and economic growth with the need to maintain quality of life for the residents and neighborhoods in the areas impacted by those projects?
In the opening statement that my opponent made, he made a lot of things. And one of those was the fact that I approved or I support expansion of the 710 freeway. Something could be further from the truth. I'm the chair of the city I-710 committee. I worked with consultants, traffic consultants, with representatives from the MTA, from representatives from Port of Long Beach, from transportation consultants all the way on down. And the plan that we presented to the city council, which they adopted, and there was a plan that was pushed forward to the MTA, which they adopted, was not an expansion of the freeway, but a modernization of the freeway. To get trucks out of there, create traffic lanes for trucks, dedicated specifically for trucks, with non-zero emission or near zero emission trucks, to take them away from the freeway. It provides an opportunity to $200 million towards the purchase of zero emission or near zero emission trucks, so that we would clean the air. It provides also for an opportunity for hospitals, daycare centers, schools to get air filters and air conditioners to clear the air in those facilities. So it's not, it was referred to that if he had to document it, he read the paper. The paper misquoted, in fact they didn't misquote me, they out loud said a flat untruth, which is being perpetuated by my opponent, because it fits his narrative. His narrative is that I'm against everything that he's for. In fact, I don't know if he's really done anything in terms of community engagement or been out there working with you guys. I've been out, I've heard you, I've listened to your concerns, and we're now doing something about it. I was a member of the 17th Commission, where the environmental came in there and said, we need to have more bike paths, we have to be better freeway conditions. I heard you, and I voted for it, and it was forwarded over to the MTA, and they had it now. Thank you.
I find it highly ironic that the second most absentee council members talk about doing stuff in our community. That is a fact. He's missed over 260 votes. And one of the votes he did take on the subcommittee of the 710 was actually to vote for and support Alternative 5C, which the press telegram mentioned just the other day, and that would widen the 710. It would displace, not according to me, according to LA County, it would displace over 400 people in our communities along the 710. So I don't know who you were listening to, council member, but clearly you weren't listening to our community or our neighbors on the west side who already deal with some of the highest rates of pollution in the region. So what I will fight for, instead of widening the 710, instead of taking more than 10 grand oil companies like my opponent has, I will make sure that we actually have zero emission trucks before 2035 as soon as possible in our community, that we have a dedicated truck lane, that we raise the barrier between the 710 and the west side so we don't have neighbors who have pieces of truck tires falling into their yard. I will make sure that we actually have more open space in our community, that we use other alternative corridors, which neighbors on the west side have been calling for years, like the Alameda corridor, that we look at other options like light rail that do not displace community members, and we'll make sure that kids in our community, no matter what zip code they live in, have the same outcomes in life, because right now they do not. If you live on the west side, if you're a child growing up there, you are at a much higher rate of lung cancer, of various diseases of cognitive impairment, and that is because they are breathing in pollution from the 710, from the ports, from the refineries, including Cesura, which my opponent took money from. So I don't think we need a council member with one hand who's telling us he's going to fight for us, and the other hand is going to tell us he's going to take money from companies that are polluting our community. We need a council member who will be consistent, not try to switch his position to earn your vote. We need a council member who will actually fight for our entire district, for a child on the west side, just as much as he fights for a child in Cal Heights, Wrigley, Cerritos, or anywhere else in our community.
Allows for a transfer of funds from our city-owned utilities to the city's general fund to be used for any purpose. These funds would come from utility rates charged above the need of the utility. What is your opinion of Measure M?
What we've seen in our city over the last few years is a continuing pattern of asking taxpayers to pay for stuff that doesn't actually come to our communities, especially in District 7. So what I've said in Measure M is, look, I support Measure M, but we actually need a council member who will fight to make sure that those resources are actually allocated to our district, which they are not currently. That means fighting for improved infrastructure. That means fighting to improve our environment. That means fighting to make sure that we address homelessness, that we grow small businesses and crime, and not just have a giveaway to the city of Long Beach. And every single day we hear from community members who simply do not feel heard on that issue. So we need a council member who actually listens to folks and will not just approve measure after measure or support measure after measure that asks the taxpayers to chip in but doesn't give them anything back. We saw the same thing with Measure A, where, as I said earlier, paying 10.25% sales tax now, and yet we don't see any of those improvements in our district in any significant way in comparison to the rest of the city. So we need someone to make sure that funds are actually earmarked for our community, and make sure that the funds go into our district. You know, if you go to the west side, if you go to parts of Wrigley, parts of our district, you see that neglect every single day. There are folks who don't have curbs. There are folks who don't have paved streets for years who've been asking for it. There are folks who are elderly or have disabilities who aren't able to get down the street because of the sidewalks are so bad. There are folks who are missing trees on their street. We documented this on our website. You know, tree stumps and broken sidewalks and cracked streets and poorly maintained parks, that's not leadership. We need a council member to make sure that our resources go to us and that we actually reduce pollution in our community, that we don't take money from oil companies or special interests, that we only take marching orders from us, from our community. And that is something I will fight for, and that is something I will do on the city council. Thank you.
I don't know if it's, here we go again. More creative facts. But it's not lost on me where we're at. We're in the petroleum club, right? Long Beach used to be an oil company, an oil property, and we still do. I mean, we still have a lot of oil resources out there, and in fact, many of those companies contribute to a lot of community benefits. So, I'll stop there. But the bottom line is that Measure M is not a new tax. Measure M is simply an opportunity for us because the law's changed. We've been using utilities for balancing our budgets, for providing services like police, fire, parks and recreation, keeping libraries open. We've been using that. What Measure M does, it doesn't increase taxes, and it doesn't do anything like that. All it does is basically puts into the municipal code that we are able to transfer those funds to create and to sustain the services that we have. It's no change, it doesn't change anything. So what you're hearing about an inability to use these Measure M monies for infrastructure, we have that. We have Measure A that's taking care of that. Measure M resources are to provide all the other services that we need to provide in the city, such as police, fire, parks and recreation, to keep our streets, to keep our people working for you. And I'm very happy to have the support of the IAM and city employees. I'm very happy to have the support of police officers and firefighters. I'm very happy to have the support of teachers and paramedics because they know that the jobs that they do are very important to the community. And I'm with them because I'm there for you. We have to have services that are going to keep everybody safe, secured, and with the comfort that knowing that their city employees are out there working for them. Thank you.
Okay, so we have about, depending on the timing, we have 3 or 4 more questions. Just thought I'd give the candidates a heads up on that. So, question number 8, and Mr. Uranga will go first for that. District versus citywide issues. If elected or re-elected, you would represent the 7th District and its residents, but you would also vote on citywide measures and help decide issues outside of the 7th District. How would you balance the desires of your 7th District electorate with the desires of other council districts and the mayor on issues that affect us?
You know, many of the votes that the city council takes are focused on citywide. And many of those actually affect the 7th District itself. Because when you have an issue that needs to be addressed citywide, it addresses the 7th district. Now, the key here is to ensure, as a council member, as a 7th district council member, that we get our fair share of resources. As an example, 4 years ago, we were looking at the exit of redevelopment. Redevelopment left us. It was discontinued, and the governor of California says no more redevelopment, which meant that a lot of properties that we have in the city of Long Beach are now open to be sold to private entities. We don't have that many in the 7th district, but I fought our city council representatives from the other districts who had redevelopment properties in their areas, and they wanted to take that whole amount of the sales for their districts. I said, no, we have to share that with the 7th district as well. And I made sure that we fought for the fact that they got those funds, that we would get our fair share in the 7th district as well. That's just one example of how we fought, or how I fought, to make sure that the 7th district gets its fair share of its budget, that it gets its fair share of services, whether it's a city vote or a 7th district vote. And by the way, those 260 votes that my opponent says I missed, none of them were swing votes.
Yeah.
All those votes were unanimous. So I mean, let's leave that alone.
Yeah.
There's no purpose on that. So what I fought was for libraries to recover $450,000 worth of library books in the district. It also affected the city and affected our libraries so that children could have an opportunity to get those books, and so you could get an opportunity to visit those books that have been missing for a long time. So everything we do for the city, we do for the 7th district as well.
Well, council member, if you want to talk about your June 60 missed votes, then let's do it, because that impacts our community. So if you're in... Now look. We show up to work every day. A lot of us show up to work every day. So when you miss work 260 times, I don't think you should be hired again for 4 years. I'm not one of them. So let's talk. And quite frankly, council member, we pay your salary, even though you miss work. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Can I speak, please? So you know, there's a vote on creating youth jobs program. So you talk about resources. We need youth jobs in our community. And you didn't show up for that vote. There's a vote on mentorship program for at-risk kids. We have at-risk kids in our community. I've met them. You know, there's a vote on make sure we're reviewing and approving city budgets. He missed those votes too. And we list them on our website. You know, so there are real issues. Air pollution. So there are real issues in our community. I am. And I'll tell you my answer to the question. My answer to the question is actually make sure a council member who shows up for work every single day and fights for our community, and make sure that we actually have a council member who does things like grow business improvement associations in our district. We make sure that, because we don't have them in places like the west side of Ridley, make sure that we have a business improvement district on the west side. Make sure that we have a business liaison in our office, which we don't currently have, or actually serve small businesses. District 3 has it, why don't we have it? We'll make sure that our infrastructure is as good and as safe as anywhere else in the city, that we have things like stop signs and speed bumps and Dist throughout our district to protect kids and families. We'll make sure that we have a healthy environment for our kids, that we have open space. All of those things is part of making sure that our district gets the resources it needs. So when there are proposals, for example, like building Belmont Pool, and they want to spend over $100 million on that, I want to make sure that we actually spend money in our community. When there are proposals, making sure that they're spending downtown, that we serve our community. That's what I'll do.
So I do appreciate the passion of the audience, but the candidates can come here and say pretty much what they would like, and you guys get to decide on who you're going to vote for. And the candidate talk, and the audience is here to hear the candidates. Yes. So I'm sure I appreciate your passion. I'm sure there are statements on all sides that think that maybe it's not this or maybe it's not that, but we are here to hear the candidates. So please to allow the candidate to be heard. Question number 9. Mr. Milrad goes first. And this is a little bit of a long question. Safety / Long Beach PD. The Long Beach Police Department staffing level per 1,000 residents is very low compared to the city of Los Angeles and the city of Signal Hill. This makes our city a soft target for crime and criminals. With Measure A in effect, Long Beach now has the highest sales tax rate in the entire country at 10.25%. The purpose of the tax was stated to be for infrastructure needs and improved police and fire services. Recently, there has been a marked increase in low-level but incredibly frustrating crimes, such as home and car burglaries. What is your view on our police staffing levels, and what action would you take to change it in this budget-sensitive environment? Mr. Milrad goes first.
It's an incredibly important question because what we've seen in our community, as I said earlier, in our city, violent crime has gone up, aggravated assault has gone up, petty thefts have gone up. So we need to actually make sure our district feels safe and is safe. And we've heard from parents, from young people throughout our community, throughout the district, including on the west side, that they do not feel safe. We need a couple things to happen. Number one, we need neighborhood watch programs that were started and restarted, and I will fight for that if elected to the city council. We need to make sure we have community policing in our community, because we don't currently now. We make sure cops walk the beat, are on the street, know the community, and can engage with them, not only in times of crisis, but before then, to actually reduce incidents of violence. We need to make sure that we have police patrols. This is one of the most common things we've heard throughout the course of our campaign. We've seen thousands of people, and many folks raise it. They want more police patrols in our community, and I will fight for that on the city council. We need to make sure we actually have police presence, but we also make sure that the cops have the resources they need. So I would be open to increasing staffing, but I want to make sure the staffing actually serves our district, and that they're visible in our community, and make sure that they're present. And that includes things like county resources like body cameras. There was a pilot program that was brought forward in the city of Long Beach, pilot programs. It's something I want to see expanded, because we know from that one pilot actually reduced incidents of aggression and negative interaction with police officers. That's something I'll fight to expand. So we need an all-around approach to do smart policing, to do it in our community, and make sure there's a presence and an active engagement with folks in our community, and also make sure that our police stations are open to the public so that folks can actually go in and communicate with police officers. And that is not the case. That is not the case. It's something that parents have brought up over and over and over again, that they want to have that presence and that connection to our police officers who serve our community, and I will fight for that on the city council.
Well, clearly, what my opponent just said shows his inexperience and unfamiliarity with Long Beach. I just moved here a year and a half ago. He's been on a listening tour, and I have to give him credit. He's been listening. He's been listening. But again, it's another relation of creating his own facts. Violent crime has indeed gone down, but it doesn't fit his narrative, so he has to say it's been improved. I say up, he says down. I say down, he says up. It's part of his narrative. So that's okay. It's part of being a candidate and you want to convince your employees. But in support of police department, in my career, I worked for the city of Long Beach. I was a recruitment officer. I was in charge of hiring, looking for, and getting police officers in the city of Long Beach. As a council member, I voted continuously to support our police department. I'm ensuring that they get the equipment and the tools they need to get their jobs done. This academy that we have present in the police academy is 70 police recruits, the highest number of police recruits that we've ever had. I voted with the mayor and the MPA to get the police department to take over the Blue Line in Long Beach so that we could have police officers all along the Blue Line to improve our response times into the communities in and around the Blue Line, including right here in Wardville. It started here and goes back on. We also improved and we opened the the South Division, which was already eliminated because of good budget cuts back 10 years ago. We also reinstituted Engine 8, and we instituted more paramedic units. I'm doing the work. And with your help and support, I can continue to do more, and we improve the city and improve our public safety.
My opponent says he's doing the work. Well, if you ask the fire department, which I have to get their own statistics, our fire department is actually only at 46% capacity right now. That's a fact, according to them. So it's clear that our response times are not where they need to be, and then the city council will make sure to fight for that. Now, if you want to talk about experience, Councilman, I'm going to have to talk about that all day, because your experience is not showing up for work 260 times. My experience is actually having the first leadership experience developing a program to trap rescue, founding a small business in our community, a film production company, Tell Stories That Matter, both the things you have not done. Advocating for healthy food options in our schools, something else you have not done, because we have a food desert right in the west side in our community. So if you want to talk about experience, I don't think what we need is another career politician in his experience. What we need is a new leader who will fight for our community every single day, and who will stand up for us, and who will show up to work on behalf of us, not outside special interests and not big corporations.
As you maybe noticed, there, like I said at the beginning, there are 1-minute rebuttal chips, and that was a 1-minute rebuttal chip. Question number 10. Recreational marijuana sales. Both medical and recreational sales and the use of cannabis are now legal under California law, though both continue to be illegal under federal law. Licensed medical marijuana shops are now operating in Long Beach, and the City Council will soon take up rules regarding recreational sales. What is your opinion regarding the current cannabis operations in Long Beach, and what would you like to see in the near future regarding possible recreational sales? And Mr. Uranga is first.
This is an issue that the voters voted for. The state of California voted for medical marijuana. The city of Long Beach, it was put on the ballot and voted in by over 60% to sell medical marijuana. So it's not something that that I can control. The people want to have access to medical marijuana. Now, what we've done in the city council and what I supported was to let's tax it. Let's make sure that the city gets its fair share of revenue from the sales of medical marijuana, and we're going to work towards doing the same thing with recreational marijuana to ensure that the city gets its fair share of revenue from those two items. Now, what's that revenue going to go towards? It's going to go towards enforcement. It's going to go towards ensuring that there's educational programs, that the students or that minors receive the information they need in terms of the effects of medical and or recreational marijuana. We're going to put limits, age limits to recreational marijuana, 21 and above. It's going to be treated the same way as any other type of substance that we need to control. So when we talk about the effects on the community, actually it's going to have some positive effects, because there are a lot of people out there, and I see people here in the audience who are taking, I'm going to phrase that, who need marijuana to deal with their pain, who need access to it, and what we're doing in the city is providing them with that access, but we're doing it in a way that is going to make sure that it's safe, that it's 1,000 feet away from child care centers, from schools, from parks, and that it's in areas that is not going to be easily accessible for children to be there. Now, we also going to do the same with recreational marijuana, and I strongly support the fact that we are going to monitor it, and we're going to keep a close eye on it, and we're going to use that everything to make sure that the rules are followed. Thank you.
Well, look, I support medical marijuana, I support recreational marijuana, but I want to make sure that we actually do things that are smart and use it to grow our tax base in our community. But also, importantly, this is a concern raised by numerous residents across our community, including right over here in Cal Heights. Make sure that we have diversified businesses, so that we don't just have dispensaries in our community, but we have a variety of businesses on walkable business corridors. And that's what I talked about earlier, making sure that we have business permit associations, business permit districts, having a business liaison in our office, something we do not currently have. And so also looking at other ways to simplify our tax code, simplify our licensing process for new businesses, making sure that we do look at things like development and we look at things like production of marijuana in our city, but that we do it in smart places and that we have diversified businesses. I also want to make sure that our kids are safe and that we, again, use any money that we obtain from regulation in a way that serves our community. That's what our community has been calling for. We champion actually make sure that funds are allocated appropriately. And again, being a business owner, having managed budgets, knowing actually how to grow small businesses, frankly, listening to business owners in our community, I will be a champion for small business growth. And that includes in the appropriate places, small business growth related to medical marijuana and recreational marijuana production, sales, and development. Thank you.
Okay, so before we do closing statements, we do have one question left. And since this is the Los Cerritos Neighborhood Association Forum, we're going to ask a Los Cerritos question. Number 11, and this is Mr. Milrad goes first. Los Cerritos Council District split. In 2010, due to council redistricting, the Los Cerritos neighborhood was split along Bixby Road, north and south, with representation north of Bixby by the 8th District and south of Bixby by the 7th District. In 2020, council redistricting will occur again. At this time, it is not known whether any changes will be required in the 7th or 8th districts. So, what is your opinion of the current situation?
Well, I think any redistricting that takes place needs to involve the community. And the community needs to feel heard. And that is something that quite evidently did not happen in the past. Because folks have said, look, we're south of Bixby, we're SOBs, we're north of Bixby, NOBs, right? And folks have said that they feel that experience because in our district, we're not getting the services we need. So literally, we've had neighbors on Pacific Ave who can look across the street in District 8 and see better maintained infrastructure. You see, our community is actually taking care of its service. So I want to make sure we're not artificially separating our community and that we actually have a redistricting process that engages the community, that listens to folks across our community, and a district that, frankly, represents and makes sense as a district. I would say, though, our district is an amazing place to be. We have a diverse district, one of the most diverse districts in the city, and I want to make sure everyone in our district feels heard. That doesn't just involve things like community meetings, means showing up at people's doors like we have, having house parties, being involved in people's lives, showing up to vote, but also starting significant new initiatives for our community. And so that is all part and parcel of engagement, and it also goes to exactly your question of making sure that the districting takes place in a fair way, in an equitable way, doesn't leave anybody out, and it makes sure that our entire district, from Cerritos to Wrigley to the west side of Cal Heights, feels heard and engaged and served by a champion of the city council, and that's exactly what I'll do for our community.
Here you go again. The narrative that fits his. When in fact, redistricting is all about demographics, populations, about neighborhoods. It's about contiguousness. It's about communities of interest. That's what redistricting is all about. And what happened in 2010, when that split was made along Bixby Road, it split a community. When the redistricting in 2010 took away Wrigley and split it on Pacific Avenue, that was a shame. When in 2010, the communities of Bixby Highlands and Bixby Knolls were included into 7th District, it split communities. But I've been working with our council member from the 8th District, Al Austin. We work together to address the issues in the Los Cerritos neighborhood. We've been working together to make sure that the parade happens every year on the 4th of July. We've been making sure that we get our municipal band concerts at the Los Cerritos neighborhood. In fact, we've added concerts into the 7th District. We're at Somerset and at Silverado. We're going to add municipal band concerts in there. So I've been working with our neighborhood councilmen to ensure that all the interests of the 7th District, whether it's north of Bixby or south of Bixby, makes no difference. We're one community. And when it comes down to redistricting in 2020, and actually in 2021, because the census comes out in 2020, we're going to look at communities of interest. We're going to look at keeping those together. And in fact, we're working now with the city attorney and with the mayor to look to establish a redistricting commission so that we can make sure that yes, you are engaged, that yes, you have your input, and yes, you want to keep your communities of interest together so that you are not separating them again. And if it stays that way, we're going to work it so that we can maintain those communities of interest together. Thank you.
The unfortunate thing is, right now, we do have a separated community. And we have a situation where our communities are not being served equally. I'll give you an example. Let's go to Wrigley Heights, right? There's the oil operator site, which the council member said several years ago we would find $17 to $22 million to make, in public funding, to make open space. Now, what happened? If you go there right now, it's still a polluted pile of dirt. Frankly, nothing has been done. And folks in that community have been calling and fighting for open space for years. And I have a few ideas as to why it's not been done. Because the council member has taken the massive contribution from oil operators, which is the company that owns the site. And he's now taken thousands of dollars in this year alone from integral communities, which have bought the site. So you can't, in one hand, say you want engagement and connectivity, and on the other hand, take money from the companies that are actually polluting our community. So we have not taken a dime from those companies, and what we will say is instead of taking money from companies with pending projects in our district, including developers and oil companies, we will instead support our community and serve our community. That's what I will do with Game One.
God, you should be ashamed.
I was just looking to see...
You should be ashamed.
So, we're now at the point of closing statements. And
What for?
Mr. Uranga has at least one additional rebuttal chip. So at his choosing, he can go 3 minutes. Only go 3 minutes. He so chooses. And Mr. Milrad can go the standard 2 minutes. His closing statement, and a jury unless it's 3 minutes for Mr. Long.
What you see is what you get. I'm not scripted. I'm not rehearsed. I'm not an actor. I come from my heart, and I'm speaking to you right now as your neighbor, not necessarily as your council member, which I hope to continue to serve you, but as your neighbor and as a friend. I've lived in this community for over 35 years. My wife and I raised our children here. They've gone to our schools here. They've grown up. All 3 of them got their degrees, which I'm very proud of Papa for that. Hard work, a lot of money. They work in Long Beach. They live in Long Beach. And I have a grandson whose future is going to be in Long Beach. I'm deeply rooted here. I'm a homeowner, a taxpayer. I retired from the city after 28 years. I built years and years of establishments, of established relationships with not only you as my neighbors, but with city employees, with firefighters, police officers, nurses, teachers. They know who I am. That's why I have their support, because they know that I get things done, because I know where to go and how to do it. And I continue to do that, and I've been doing that for the last 4 years as your councilman. I've protected the noise ordinance. I've fixed more streets and sidewalks than ever in the past 20 years. We have more police officers now than we have in the past. We need more. We need more, there's no question about that. Public safety is still a big issue, and that's what I'm going to work on. What am I going to work on in the next 4 years? We're going to address and resolve and minimize homelessness. We're going to build more business corridors. I had the opportunity to open more businesses in Long Beach, again, with respect to my wife. I've opened up more businesses in Long Beach, in the 7th District, than ever before. In West Long Beach, I facilitated the opening of 5,000 pies. We have ribbon cutting there. In Wrigley, we opened up the beer lab, which is an innovative way of creating craft beers with a great bakery. In Cal Heights, we opened up Keystone Uniforms, which is a police uniform. We facilitated them being able to open up there across the street from its headquarters. We also facilitated the Steel House. Steel craft. Well, there are two places there. There's Steel craft. The house is the coffee house, and then we have the Steel craft, which is an innovative, unique opportunity to have different types of eateries, craft beers, as well as shaved ice, as well as other opportunities there. And we also, in our newest ribbon cutting, got open Liberation Brewing Company. Yeah. So we're opening businesses. We're going to build a new business corridor. I got that, no, right? No, well, that was it. Okay, well, thank you very much.
I'd like to thank LCNA for hosting tonight's event, all of you for being part of it. You know, look, my husband and I are proud to live and work in our community, live and work in our city. And the differences in this election could not be clearer. You know, on June 5th, voters can choose the establishment, or they can choose new leadership. Politics as usual, or a leader who will put public service back into politics. While my opponent is the second most absentee council member and has missed 260 opportunities to serve our community, I've listened to thousands of my neighbors and have a detailed platform to make our community stronger. While my opponent has taken over $10,000 from 10 big oil companies and executives, our grassroots campaign is fueled and funded by people, with the majority of our donors being Long Beach residents and businesses. While my opponent has repeatedly voted against the environment, I'm a lifelong advocate who will fight to protect kids in every single zip code in our city. While my opponent cut 11 vocational programs at our city college, I've empowered at-risk youth and will serve the next generation of leaders. You see, I've never run for office before, but I'm here because I love Long Beach, and I know we can do better. Despite the establishment counting us out before any votes were counted, nevertheless, we persisted, and a diverse chorus of voices is calling for change. From the west side of Wrigley to Cal Heights, our district is littered with broken promises, and we need a strong, independent leader who fights for us. A proactive, engaged council member who's involved in our community year-round, not every 4 years to win your vote. We need a public servant who will come to you, not a career politician who's more worried about keeping his job than doing it. And we need a leader who holds City Hall accountable, and I hope that our ear votes for change on Tuesday, June 5th. Thank you.
So this is the program tonight. We really appreciate everyone's attendance, enthusiasm, and passion for this debate. And the Uranga Club reminds me to tell you that the bar is